James and Amber Martin worked together, built a life together. To everyone who knew them, they were solid. A couple that made sense. But on a Friday morning in January, James stabbed his wife multiple times in their Coralville apartment. He told police he'd been planning it for hours. What he didn't tell them was why. And that's the question that haunts everyone who knew Amber Martin. A woman who seemed to have everything going for her, killed by the one person who was supposed to protect her. When the clock strikes midnight, the truth comes out. I'm 12 a.m. crime, and every single day I bring you real cases of domestic violence that turn deadly. The stories the system tried to bury, the victims who deserve justice. If you're about that raw, unfiltered truth, hit subscribe. New case drops every day at midnight. Don't sleep on justice. This is 12 a.m. crime. Amber Nicole Martin was 41 years old when she died. She worked as a medical laboratory scientist supervisor at the University of Iowa healthcare system, specifically in microbiology. The people who worked with her didn't just respect her, they genuinely loved her. Connie Florkinger, her supervisor, remembered Amber as a very good leader who fit into our team very quickly. The technologists thought highly of her. She loved her job. She loved where she worked, and Florkinger saw something special in her. They'd been talking about succession planning, the kind of conversation you have with someone you trust, someone you see a future for. I told her that I could see her taking my position when I retired, Florkinger said. What happened next is the kind of moment that sticks with you. Amber walked to the doorway. Florkinger looked back at her computer, focused on work. Then Amber said her name. When Florkinger looked up, Amber gave her the hand heart sign, fingers curved into the shape of a heart. That was Amber in a nutshell, Florkinger said. That gesture, that's who Amber was. Warm, present, the kind of person who made you feel seen. Before the University of Iowa, both Amber and her husband James worked at Quincy Medical Group. She was the microbiology coordinator. He was the hematology coordinator. They were building careers in the same field, at the same place. From the outside, it looked like they were building something together. Ann Ostermiller worked with them at Quincy Medical Group. She trained Amber when she first started, and when she talked about Amber after her death, you could hear the affection in her words. Amber was such a wonderful woman, Ostermiller told Muddy River News. She was vivacious, kind, and loved by all her co-workers. James was different, quieter, more reserved. But that didn't seem like a problem. Couples don't have to be identical. They just have to work. And from what everyone could see, James and Amber Martin worked. They seemed to be such a close and loving couple, Ostermiller said. I cannot imagine what transpired to change their relationship so much. That's the thing about domestic violence. It doesn't always announce itself. There's no press release, no warning signs visible to co-workers or friends. Sometimes the people closest to a situation are the last ones to know what's actually happening, or maybe they're the only ones who never get to see it at all. We don't know what changed. We don't know when it changed. There's no police report from months earlier, no documented fights, no restraining orders, no worried calls from friends saying they'd noticed something off. What we do know is this. On the night of January 15th, 2026, going into the early morning hours of January 16th, James Martin made a decision. According to the criminal complaint, he didn't just wake up angry. He didn't just snap. In the hours leading up to Amber's death, James formulated a plan. He thought about it. He considered it. He decided how he was going to do it. This wasn't a moment of rage. This was calculation. Coralville, Iowa, sits just outside Iowa City. It's the kind of place where people know their neighbors, where a stabbing at 6:40 in the morning shocks the whole community. The Martins lived in an apartment complex on Spring Rose Circle, 2871 Spring Rose Circle to be exact. On January 16, 2026, at approximately 6:40 a.m., 911 calls started coming in. Someone had been stabbed. James Martin went to the kitchen. He opened a drawer. He picked out a knife. This wasn't a weapon he had to go looking for. It was already there, in their home, in the space they shared. A kitchen knife. The kind of thing you use to make dinner. The kind of thing that sits in a drawer and means absolutely nothing until someone decides it means something else. He retrieved that knife, and then he waited. We don't know what Amber was doing in those final moments. Maybe she was getting ready for work. Maybe she was just moving through the apartment, doing the small, ordinary things people do in the morning. She had no idea what was coming. That's what the word surprised means in this context. She had no warning, no chance to run, no chance to defend herself, no chance to ask why. James waited for her to exit another room, and when she did, he attacked. He stabbed her, not once, not twice, repeatedly, multiple times, enough that when police arrived, the scene told its own story. This is what premeditation looks like. Hours of planning, a weapon chosen, a moment selected, and then the execution of that plan with no hesitation. At 6:40 in the morning, 911 operators started receiving calls about a stabbing at 2871 Spring Rose Circle in Coralville. The Coralville Police Department dispatched officers immediately. When police arrived at the apartment, they went inside. What they found was Amber Martin, unresponsive, suffering from numerous stab wounds. The officers didn't wait. They immediately started rendering medical aid. They tried to save her, but some things can't be undone. Some injuries are too severe. Some violence is too complete. Paramedics arrived. They did everything they could, but Amber Nicole Martin was pronounced dead at the scene, right there in her own apartment, in the home she shared with her husband, at 41 years old, with a career she loved, with coworkers who looked up to her, with a future that should have included so much more. James Martin was still there when police arrived. He didn't run. He didn't try to hide what he'd done. According to the criminal complaint filed against him, James admitted to killing his wife. He told detectives what he'd done. He walked them through it. The planning, the knife, the attack. Detectives documented everything. In the hours leading up to the defendant killing the victim, the defendant formulated a plan to kill the victim, the complaint states. The defendant retrieved a kitchen knife and surprised the victim as she exited another room and stabbed the victim repeatedly. There was a witness, someone who saw or heard something that corroborated what James was saying. The details of what that witness observed haven't been made public, but detectives noted that the evidence they collected at the scene was consistent with both James Martin's statements and the observations made by that witness. This wasn't a case where police had to piece together what happened from fragments and forensics. James told them. He admitted it. The evidence matched. The witness confirmed it. They took James Fuller Martin into custody right there at the scene. No chase, no standoff. Just an arrest. A 47-year-old man who had just killed his wife and was now going to face the consequences. But here's what they didn't have: a motive. James Martin told police how he did it. He told them when he did it. He told them that he planned it. What he didn't tell them, or what detectives haven't publicly disclosed, is why. Why does a man spend hours planning to kill his wife? What happens in a marriage that moves someone from close and loving couple to murder? What changed? When did it change? And why didn't anyone see it coming? Those are the questions that haunt this case. Those are the questions that Amber's coworkers, her friends, the people who knew them both, are left trying to answer. And those are the questions that may never have satisfying answers. Because sometimes the why doesn't make sense. Sometimes there is no explanation that makes it okay, that makes it understandable, that makes it anything other than what it is. A tragedy. A life taken. A woman killed by someone who was supposed to love her. The investigation into Amber's death continues. Detectives are still working the case, still gathering evidence, still building the prosecution's file. But the core facts are already clear. James Martin planned to kill his wife. He carried out that plan. And Amber Martin is dead. James Fuller. Martin was charged with first-degree murder under Iowa Code 707-2-1A. That's the statute for killings committed willfully, deliberately, and with premeditation. It's the most serious murder charge in Iowa law. He's being held at the Johnson County Jail. His bond was set at $1 million. As of now, the case remains active and ongoing. No trial date has been set. The legal process is just beginning. Ann Ostermiller said it best. This murder is beyond the comprehension of those that knew them. That's what domestic violence often is to the people on the outside. They seemed happy. They seemed solid. And then everything you thought you knew turns out to be wrong. We may never understand what happened between James and Amber Martin. We may never know what breaking point was reached in those hours before 6:40 a.m. on January 16th. What we do know is that Amber Martin mattered. She mattered to her co-workers, who saw her as a leader. She mattered to Connie Flurkinger, who received that hand heart sign just days before Amber's death. That gesture, fingers curved into the shape of a heart, that's what people will remember. Not the violence, but the way she lived. Domestic violence doesn't always look like what you think it looks like. Sometimes it hides behind the image of a close and loving couple. Sometimes the first sign anyone sees is the last sign there will ever be. That's the reality of intimate partner violence. The person who's supposed to protect you can become the person who destroys you. And Amber Martin had no idea that her husband was planning to kill her. A 41-year-old woman who loved her job, who was loved by the people around her, gone. Stabbed to death in her own apartment by the man she married, while the rest of the world was waking up and getting ready for another ordinary day. Amber Martin deserved to live. She deserved to take that supervisor position one day. She deserved to keep being the person who turned around in doorways to give hand hearts. If you or someone you know is experiencing domestic violence, the National Domestic Violence Hotline is available 24/7 at 1-800-799-7233. Rest in peace, Amber Nicole Martin. This is 12 a.m. Crime, where we shine a light on the darkness of domestic violence and the lives lost in relationships that turned deadly. If this story affected you, hit that like button and subscribe to stay updated on cases that matter. Drop a comment below with your thoughts. We read every single one. And remember, if you or someone you know needs help, that number again is 1-800-799-7233. The National Domestic Violence Hotline. Available 24/7. Until next time, stay safe out there.